All right, so we're here with Jim Angelopoulos, the owner of Yolked out here in Morgan Hill. So start off with the first question, Jim. What is your background and kind of what led you to Yolked?
Well, Ronnie, my parents immigrated here in 1968, I believe, and I was 5 years old at the time. So at that point, my dad was washing dishes, trying to get a job, any job. He worked his way up to being a cook, and then he opened his first restaurant, and actually in San Martin, so close to Morgan Hill where Yolked is. And that kind of was the evolution of my start in the restaurant business. And so I worked along my parents for about 25 years in one restaurant in San Jose, and a diner basically. So I got schooled there, and from there it was, I took off into opening my own business when I was 25.
And what was the name of that business?
That one. So what happened was, at some point, I basically thought I knew more than my parents. And I was pretty much at a young age. I was probably about 20, 21. And I wanted to open my own restaurant. And at some point, I borrowed $20,000 from my dad. And I opened up what used to be an old Denny's, and I called it, I don't even remember what I called it. It was just such a long time ago that I converted it into a full-service diner, and that was my first restaurant at literally 25 years old.
And where did you go from there?
Well, I learned a lot from that one. I should have learned more, but it was my first big success. That $20,000, I sold that restaurant for $160,000 6 months later. And I remember that, wow, this was really easy. I can do this all the time. So like any 25-year-old, I went and bought a Ferrari. And it was never as easy as the first time. So lesson learned that, you just like going to the Super Bowl, right? It's like it may never happen again. And it didn't happen for me for a long, long time until I opened Scrambles. But in between there, I had other opportunities to open other restaurants. So I think I opened about 6 or 7 restaurants in between that. So,
how did you come up with the name Yolked for this restaurant?
That's pretty easy. I think when it comes to names, it has to be very simple and easy to remember. So I always ask myself, what is easy to remember? And just like Scrambles was easy to remember. And I always try to think of a name that is basically one word, and because it's just easier. Now, that's the toughest part is the name, because what happens is you have to think of a name that hasn't been possibly trademarked, so you don't want to get sued. And so Yolked, and also I asked my staff before I opened Yolked, people I know, friends, think of a name, and at that point, Yolked we came up with Yolked, and it was, we went running with it, and it worked.
And now we'll come to question 3, which we kind of talked about a little bit before. What have you learned as a restaurant owner? And I know you talked about, at the beginning when we asked you the first question, that you thought you knew a little bit more about the business than your parents did. And maybe let's dig into that a little bit more.
Yeah, I think whatever business you're in, you have to learn every aspect of it. And with my parents, even though I didn't know how to cook, I realized the way my dad would operate was everything was based on him buying the cheapest product because we're trying to survive as a family. So to him, getting the best price but not the best quality was most important. To me, that didn't work. And I remember being very young and telling him that, as if it was yesterday, look, I said, you may buy the cheapest ribs, but you're going to lose customers because they can't eat those ribs.
Right.
So that was a start. So I believe that quality has to be there, and customers will pay for it. And so And the toughest part, obviously, of running a restaurant, especially a restaurant, because it involves so many variables, is just the day-to-day operation. I think, it's a tough business for everybody involved, whether it be the servers, the cooks, the dishwashers, and I've done it all. They have to get up every day and make that bacon and eggs the same way they did yesterday. That's a tough proposition, especially on a weekend when we serve 800 customers. That's hard to do,
right,
week in and week out. So it's not like you develop a piece of software and you sold it and that's all you have to do. So it's a challenge. It's definitely a challenge, and it humbles you.
Yeah, and I think question number 4, going into, how did you build a good team? This would be a nice way to kind of lead into that.
Honestly, it's like in many ways, I got lucky finding good people that to this day are still with me. Jolene, my manager, started when she was 18. She's 42. She has 3 kids now, and they are all my god kids. So you become like a family, and I think it's so important because this is a low-paying industry. So if these people that come in here every day and do their best to serve customers, if they're not happy, they'll quit. So first and foremost is gain their trust and know that you're here for them by working alongside of them. And I do that every day. I'm here every day.
And what I mean, this is a great lead into question number 5 too, is what keeps you motivated on a day-to-day basis, and how do you feed that motivation into your workers, your team?
I think you get up every morning and you realize, what's that old adage, is the glass half full, half empty. You wake up and you just do the best you can, and you gotta like what you do. If you don't like what you do, then you'll be miserable. I mean, no job is going to be good enough for you. So I think what keeps me motivated is to know that every day I like to see that we have great customers. You meet a lot of people that come in, you make a lot of friends, and it's not a tough job per se. It's not like I go in the kitchen and cook. I'm usually up front and I'm talking to customers, I'm having fun with the staff, and we get through the day, and another day goes by, and I think I'm very fortunate to be doing that, and it's not for everybody. Not everybody's personality is built to do that.
Right.
Some people like sitting behind a cubicle. I don't.
So Jim, next question is, what is one of the proudest moments that you've had as a restaurant owner?
Well, besides the first restaurant I opened as a 25-year-old, I think that was really because it was so easy, I thought, at that time, and it wasn't looking back. But selling it, from 20 to 165,000 that I put into it. So that was a very proud moment because I was so young. But as I'm in the industry and I've opened up quite a few restaurants, I think just the fact that when I develop a concept and those doors open and there's actually customers that come in, and I look around and the restaurant is full of people, I mean, I feel good, like, wow, I created this. But what's also so important is I look around and I see I support 32 employees. They rely on this restaurant, and it's crazy to think that little old me, who failed in college, can actually have such an effect on other people. But you come in here on a Sunday when we serve 800 customers, and it's amazing to watch, and everybody's working together to make that happen. It's really pretty cool, and I think that continues to motivate me because I have more concepts in my head that I want to create, and so we'll see what the future brings.
There you go. And then the final question is kind of how many hours, I know it's probably different at the beginning when you first started your first restaurant, but how many hours do you typically work, would you say, a week?
Well, in the beginning, when I first opened Scrambles back in 2004, we were open from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. So I worked a lot of hours. I worked literally 15 hours a day, 7 days a week, and it didn't end. I realized few years later that I didn't want to do that. It really mentally and physically kills you. So when I opened the Scrambles in San Jose, it was only going to be a breakfast. That's why I created the breakfast concept, only 7 hours a day. And then here at Yolked, I'm here basically only 5 hours a day. I have a great team. I work 7 days a week. I get here at 10, I leave at 3. That's my job. And in the meantime, I have fun with the staff, and we all have a good time. We work together. So, but remember, it took a long time to get to that. So you got to pay your dues. Somewhere along the line, you got to pay your dues.
Right.
You know, and the mistakes you make and the failures you have. But eventually, that leads to success. It will. If you work hard, it will always lead to success.
Definitely. Yeah, put the time in at the beginning.
Absolutely.
All right. So thank you, Jim, for your time today and explain a little bit more about your story and about Yolked. You guys should check him out. He's out here in Morgan Hill off East Dunn, the East Dunn exit, and he's always changing it up, keeping it fun. As you can see, everything's very bright and joyful in here, so come check it out. Thank you again for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.